Hi, I'm Rahul Paith, CEO of Math. Math is a joint initiative by T-Hub and DST to foster AI innovation. At Math, we support startups in AI/ML from ideation to market readiness and beyond. Welcome to another session of this podcast series. And here I have a very interesting person today with me to have this discussion. His name is Srikanth Sundararajan, and he is one of the most coveted mentors, advisors for us here in this T-Hub ecosystem. Srikanth's journey starts 40 years back, and he has been an excellent entrepreneur, C-suite executive, academician, been a professor to multiple respectable universities. And today we are glad to have him here just to understand his experience, his thoughts about startups, about investment, and about his journey so that we can learn a lot for our startups. So to start with, thanks Srikanth, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Rahul. It's a pleasure to actually do this because I think it's important to actually go back and then come forward to really understand what's going on in this ever-changing world of technology and etc. Part of a venture capital firm, I also do angel investments, mainly in technology and SaaS areas, independent of verticals.
Just to start the journey before we get into technology, investment and money, to understand your perspective about India and you're born and brought up here in Hyderabad and you've seen Hyderabad, India, different cities of India you have lived in. So how you compare it, like in last 20, 30, 40 years, what is your journey, what is your experience? Like when you, as a student, you went to IIT Madras, then you worked with the big names of the corporate world, and now you are actually helping not just the startups, but also different people. So how you look at it, like how things have changed in India?
So actually, things have changed dramatically, I would say. I went to school in the late 60s and early 70s. And I was fortunate enough to study in Hyderabad at the prestigious Hyderabad Public School, Begumpet, which is already quasi-famous because it produced a lot of good thought leaders, politicians, businessmen, entrepreneurs and investors like me. What was interesting then was there was a lot of emphasis kind of put on first principles learning, exploring, taking your time. That's very different now. People don't spend as much time. They're rushing and they're not able to sift through what is really important, what is not important, where you're headed. It's very important to visualize it from time to time, and that people are unable to do.
Right.
It could be because there was less technology and we had to do a lot of that on our own at that time, and now there's too much technology, too much information, that it doesn't happen. So that's why I find myself in this non-enviable or enviable position of being a mentor and a guide to a lot of people because there's too much information.
Right,
and you're not able to decipher what's right, what's wrong. So that's, I think, the fundamental difference. The other thing was, I think we had very passionate teachers who actually pushed us along and got us to imagine what the world would be like, why was technology important, why was certain social elements important, how do you actually kind of build a career, what do you focus on. That came from parents in those days, and a lot of it came from my teachers, I must emphasize. I don't know whether that's happening adequately today because, again, there's emphasis on speed, emphasis on volume. So you learn a lot, and you learn a lot in a very shallow manner. And not enough emphasis is paid on experience and really understanding and spending time. So I think that still persists. So again, it comes back to suddenly finding yourself confused and looking out for help. And that's why a whole bunch of us have come back from the US and have spent time here for a number of years to actually help grow that. And actually, it has made an impact. I came back in 2002 after spending 20 years in the US. The last 20 years I've spent here in a variety of corporate exec roles, professor, investor, entrepreneur. I think it has kind of helped because the ecosystem is gradually evolving, especially Hyderabad, from where it was in the late 1990s when being a startup was just very, very kind of basic, and it was more family-owned businesses doing more of the same. It's changed quite a bit today. And today we find ourselves in a wonderful city with a lot of elements which can help. And so T-Hub is right in the middle of it, and hopefully the Atal Innovation and DST mission that you're putting up, Rahul, will actually have a big impact in the next 3-4 years.
Correct. So what I understand or my takeaway is that now there is too much information, and it is important for not just kids but also startups and everyone to be smart enough to make that right decision, that what is good for me. So they need to filter a lot.
So I agree. I mean, I'm with you. I think one of the things people don't pause and think why am I doing the startup? I'm not doing the startup to emulate someone else. I'm not doing the startup because AI, machine learning, or Gen AI is a cool thing, or
Right.
why am I doing this? If you get that right, and then you get your target market right, and you
Correct.
build for value, you'll automatically do well because all the other ingredients are there today to support you.
Right.
Previously, it wasn't there.
Right.
There was a lack of capital, there was a lack of mentorship, there was a lack of good examples. Ecosystem was not ready then. Today, it's ready. But if you are doing it for the wrong reasons, you will never succeed.
Right. So my takeaway is that because of your experience and what you said, like your teachers and those people supported you the way. So I think that generation actually set a right foundation because of which we have all these opportunities today. Multiple opportunities that startups or people or students, everyone is having. Just the important is to make the right decision and have a balanced head over shoulder, what we say.
It's correct. I mean, being an entrepreneur is not easy. You have to have passion, you have to have focus, you will go through highs and lows, and you cannot give up. At the same time, you cannot feel bad because someone else is doing well. They might be doing well for certain reasons, which you need to actually look at and examine and bring back to yourself. Perhaps
Right.
you're missing out something. Or they're doing well because of something else, and it doesn't concern you, so you shouldn't actually waste your time thinking about it.
Right.
So it's very important to understand that.
Right. Coming back, like, in your life, 20 years fast forward from your college to like your corporate journey, you were like kind of a role model for everyone who is working in corporate. So the heights that you reached, the work that you did, everything is like, I can say in the tech world, you were a poster boy. Doing that, achieving so much, after that, what exactly prompted you or motivated you that to leave all these things and get into a startup or to take that challenge of building something? Because there are two aspects to it, what I'm trying to understand. Many people who come here in T-Hub or in Math, and they are also in this dilemma whether to leave the job or not. And then there are many people who have left very high paying jobs and then they started, then they are not succeeding, then they're going back. Because probably if they worked in any of the multinationals, they always come back with that plan B option that if nothing works in next 1 year, I will still have that job back and I have spoken with my manager or I will go there. So there is always this dilemma that people are not able to take that decision. So, but for you, like when you jumped off that boat, leaving a very lucrative job and where you were doing excellent. So what motivated you? Like why you took that decision, or what was your thing that you wanted to achieve? Like, okay, I have achieved this much there, but in the startup world, or when I'm building something from scratch, what is that was motivating you?
So the main thing is obviously, in order to do a startup, you have to be prepared.
Right.
There are three dimensions to that. One is, are you knowledgeable enough about the field you want to start? So once
Exactly.
that learning is over, you're ready. The second thing is, you're doing a startup,
Right.
but what is it focused on? Where do you want to take it? You want to create something of value which lasts beyond you.
Correct.
I'm talking about physically. I mean, it has to have an impact. It has to be valuable to the customers you want to provide the solution to. So if you don't think through it, at least go through that journey, it's not going to be enjoyable.
Right.
And the third thing is you have to have a very supportive family. And luckily, when I did my first jump, I'm going back in time. In 1991, I was already getting paid 6 figures in USD. I'm talking about 1991.
Right.
To leave that is not very easy. But in my situation, my better half, who's also from IIT, who's also from a good grad school, I went to UIUC, she went to Cornell. She said, this is the only time you'll get to give it a shot. Because anyway, you're super well qualified, people come and hire you anyway. And I happened to be in the Valley. Okay, so which better place to start? Because in those days, things were somewhat things were transitioning in terms of technology. I mean, not as fast as it is today, but there was a lot of transformation. We were going from mainframes to client server. We were going from servers to personal computing. We were going to small business office software. We were going through infrastructure software, all things which were happening, which were actually including the internet. Because in 1988, when I was doing my grad school, I got a chance to work on Mosaic, which became the very first browser. And having to work on that and understanding its impact, having to write the first C++ compiler for a large corporation, actually opened up my eyes to say, hey, okay, what is object-oriented programming? Where is it going? distributed computing. So all these things were happening, and I was very, very fortunate to actually interact with a bunch of people, and they said, hey, you've learned something very quickly. That was never a problem for me because I would just study for a couple of weeks and give an exam and get through. So learning was there,
Right.
application was there. It was basically to find the right kind of situation. So once I finished working on some fundamental things around software engineering, I said, how do I take it to the masses? Because software engineering was good for the developers to actually build. But developers are developers. What happens to developers who are in corporates?
Right.
Not tech companies like product companies. Product companies, they'll be like me. So they probably build it on their own or do something in-house. But what happens to people outside? And that's where I realized it was a very, very good opportunity to educate them and get them to become self-sufficient also.
Right.
Because a product company will only sell products. But then how do you use products? Having built the product, how do you actually make the transition and create solutions around that? So that was how my journey started, and I was pretty confident. I've always been a risk taker wherever I go, and I've always been a creator. So I was pretty confident this will succeed.
Right.
It took a little longer, and it took a little longer because I wasn't actually scaled on what venture funding was and when to take venture funding. Of course, that I
So
became
you were having this understanding of investment, finance world, venture funding, investors, and all
not
this
when I
stuff.
did my first startup.
Right.
When I did my second startup,
Okay,
it was
obviously.
super optimized. When I did my third startup, it was super, super optimized. So it is a learning curve, right?
Right.
Because you're coming from a tech background. And so the first startup took a while, but it was very interesting because while doing this, I learned about finance, I learned about operations, I learned about P&L, because it's all bootstrapped till I raised VC funding. Then I realized, okay, VC funding comes in. How will it help boost my basically scale in terms of both ability to hire, ability to grow top line, ability to acquire customers. And so that is when you become substantial, right? So by the time that journey finished, we were already at about 20, 25 mil revenue. Those days it was not ARR, it was actual revenue.
Right.
And we were making about 15% profit. So I didn't have any place to go, but due to personal constraints and the dot-com boom and bust that happened, we ended up selling it, which was a favorable outcome to everyone.
Right.
Then I decided to, I said, I spent enough time in the US. Let's
you
come to
decided to
India
come
and see
back.
what's happening here, because India was just beginning to happen. I'm talking about 2002, where the entire software market itself might have been something
Evolving.
like 50 million. And when I'd met the founders of NASCOM here, which is Devang Mehta in the mid 1995, and I also talked to the Thai guys because they were founded probably in 1993 in the Bay Area. They basically said, if you're ready to go, this might be a good opportunity. And they were not wrong. Because I ended up doing 2 more startups here. I ended up holding senior exec positions, which is reporting into the CEO
Took
at
companies
HCL.
public also.
The third one was taking a company public, so
Right.
we'll talk about it. But what it showed me was how do you innovate, how do you scale, and all of that stuff. Meanwhile, I was also looking at what was happening in the VC landscape.
Right.
So all of this, and when the VC firms started to happen, a lot of them were my colleagues or friends from the Bay Area. So I was able to kind of get a ringside seat, maybe do some angel investments, see what was happening. So when the time was right and the last company, as I said, went public, I took some time off, but I was also wanted to help contribute. So I set up the IIT Bhubaneswar and IIT Gandhinagar, helped them set up the computer science programs.
Right.
And once that was done, then I said, okay, now time to actually focus fully on the institutional investment, not angel. So I was with Helion as a venture partner, and I am currently with Venture East as a general partner. But that isn't enough for me, right? The oxygen comes from actually mentoring
The startups.
startups. So the best thing was, since I was anyway involved with T-Hub right from 2014, when I moved to Hyderabad, the opportunity arose again properly post the pandemic, when my good friend MSR became the CEO. He said, can you come and spend time? And now I had time. So that's why I dedicate a day and a half of my time here, and I spend the other half day in my most favorite computer science program, school and entrepreneurship and innovation, which is IIIT Hyderabad,
Right.
which I rank higher than all the IITs. So that's why I wore this T-shirt today. It's got both.
Right, absolutely. So yes, exciting journey and exciting insights for our listeners and for all of us. Again, going back to the initial point, you said like when you left the corporate job, there were 3 things. It is basically like the learnings where they're not, family support is there or not. But financials also become sometimes a challenge because someone who is not financially taken care, he is having a different thought process. But someone who is getting a very hefty package, like you mentioned, like 6-figure salaries, and For them also, it's always a dilemma. So how, you will suggest to the people who are sitting in corporates and they want to do something, how it can, what should be their motivation?
Simple question. Ask yourself, are you learning anything more?
Right.
No. Are you doing anything useful? No. Are you only earning a paycheck? And the answer to all these three questions is no. Then you spend time learning. If you've learned, yes, great. If the answer to basically the second question which I said, are you only earning a paycheck? Are you doing something of immense value? If the answer to the former is yes, which only earning a paycheck, and the answer to the next one is no, then clearly you need a change. Now, a change could be moving from one corporate role to the other. But 9 times out of 10, you'll find out that you'll be doing almost the same thing with very, very little differences. Unless you basically say, from a techie, I want to become a marketing person, or techie, I want to go to
Right.
finance or whatever. That does not happen in the corporate world because
easily.
they look at your track record and they want you to kind of perform. So I basically always felt something trigger in me saying that I think this is enough, I've learned enough. I've built good relationships. Obviously, whenever you leave a corporate role, leave on good terms. Okay, that's very, very important because they can be your customer tomorrow. So all of these things you have to mature very, very quickly. You can't just overnight take a decision. But take time, but make sure you're ready.
Right.
Have you learned enough? Are you doing anything useful in this job? Are you doing it only for a paycheck? Okay? Now the last part, going back to your question, are you doing it only for a paycheck because it's important to support the family? Then you're not ready.
Correct.
They'll always gnaw on you, right? But once that is not there, then you're ready. You've got to think along all those three dimensions very, very carefully.
Now coming back to, exact about math and what we are doing here. So in math, we are built for AI startups. We are encouraging AI first organization. We got the support from T-Hub. We got the support from DST. And that's the mission that we are having to build the largest ecosystem in India and then in the world for AI innovation. When we are bringing startups here, and today, like we see there are multiple problems that startups are facing, which are most of them or many of them are quite common to any startup problem. That any startup coming to T-Hub, they also have similar problems, like they don't understand. Sometimes if it's a too techie of a person, they don't have the financial understanding. Their product is not ready, they need some support with the product, they don't understand the market landscape, they don't know how to pitch to an investor. These are common problems. But particular to AI first companies or pure tech companies or deep tech companies, the problem most of the startups or our startups are facing today is that they are struggling with the kind of fund they need to build the product in India. So one is that because things are too expensive, and AI being a new thing, not, I will not say new, AI is there for ages, but at least the evolution or the revolution that is happening today is quite new. The kind of infra it is coming is quite new, and things are quite expensive. It requires a lot of money. Someone who is just starting new, he is building an algorithm, need to train it, needs a lot of fund. Some people can do it bootstrap, some people can't afford it to that level. These kind of challenges when it is coming, obviously I know, like, some people will say finding the right investor at the right time is always one of the solutions, because you and me, we both know it's not always that. Because some things you can do beyond investment. You need to be smart enough to navigate. And I remember one discussion I was just having with you, that you always mentioned that we need to actually break the solutions and achieve smaller targets and shorter targets, and identify multiple applications of those solutions. So if you can share some insights around that, like, what a startup entrepreneur can do if he is really struggling to build a product where today he understands money is one problem. Is apart from getting an investor, is there anything else that he can do to address these kind of issues so that he sustains, he survives, and he also tests his product?
So I think the biggest mistake people make is they think they're very, very important. They're doing something really fantastic. The answer is no. You're not doing
The love
that.
with your product.
Right.
Yeah.
So that Hindi movie analogy is you keep on singing a song with your heroine, which is your startup,
Right.
but you'll only be singing around one tree, and it doesn't help anyone, including you. So the key thing is have a vision, but when you're solving, you solve for the most fundamental things which are critical first. That is learning, and that doesn't need to involve a lot of money. And that's why I think having centers like this will help them, because you'll be able to provide certain infrastructure and certain elements that will help their product, maybe in terms of mentoring, maybe in terms of some amount of programs that you run. So that they come up to a particular point saying that, hey, I'm able to solve this. Now I can piece it together. What's the next step? Then let me figure out, leverage basically this center to see if we can reach out to a couple of customers to test it out. They never do all this. They keep building something in a isolation.
Silos, yeah.
And also think too much, like they're going to change the world. You're not going to change the world.
Be
No
realistic.
one started, even Einstein didn't start off with that, right?
Right.
So why do you think you're going to change the world? There are enough people like you out there. So there's a saying in life, right? Again, it might sound very, very blunt. The world can be at a macro level categorized into 4 people: the intelligent, the helpless, the bandits, and the stupids, right? So if you're a follower, you'll fall into the stupids category because you're not thinking, you're just doing. If you're a bandit, you can actually do good or you can do bad, because you basically make use of situations and you can actually mislead people, or you...
Right.
I'm not saying, I'm just talking about basic characteristics.
Yeah.
Now, let's come to the first 2. Helpless are those people who basically have ideal vision, but then play the victim card. I can't do this because of this, I can't do that because of this, because they're not able to influence.
Right.
The intelligent people are people who actually wait and take appropriate steps. So you have to try to be like the intelligent people, where you need speed at the right time. You can leverage the stupids and the bandits to do that, but you have to be smart. But if you're in the helpless category, you never move forward. And it applies to every aspect, whether it's finance, whether it's product market fit, customer. So you have to be very, very pragmatic and execute with precision. Now, sometimes the journey might be slow. You might be frustrated, but you have to live through that, because that continued passion is very important, because the journey is not going to be very smooth.
Right. Absolutely. So, moving on to the next phase of my question, like obviously tech readiness, product readiness, market readiness are the one aspect of it. But you being an investor on your own, so you have been an angel investor, now you're associated with big houses. So what, as an investor who is investing on tech solutions or tech entrepreneurs or tech companies for that matter, what is that you're looking at? So if I break this question into 2 pieces, like someone who is at pre-revenue and post-revenue. So pre-revenue, awesome idea, really doing great, done couple of pilots, got good responses. So if it comes to you for seed fund or some smaller funding to go to market, what is that you are looking at as an investor, or what recommendations you will give to those people who have not yet started generating money from the market?
First of all, you've got to understand your POC. Is a POC going to lead to future customer acquisition, or is just a POC? So that's a question I'll ask. And they need to be able to articulate that properly.
Okay.
Second thing I'll ask is, what are the POCs that were not necessary? They need to be able to answer that.
Right.
If I had a chance to do this POC again, I'd do it at half the time, and this is what I'll do. That means they're getting some focus. Once that happens, then I know, okay, what is your target list of customers, next 5, where you already started having conversations, and where has it gone? If there's a pattern to that, then certainly it's worth investing seed money.
Right.
There's small soft factors like how good is the team, what is their past track record history, and how pragmatic are they in terms of their spends and execution. Those things come as other positive points, but this is how I would approach it. If the person is not able to articulate the POCs correctly, then I don't really care. I'm not going to run them. Because, I mean, I'll tell you the same thing. Because if you look at the Atal Innovation Mission, it's basically taxpayers' money.
Right.
It's not a grant. It's also not a donation, right?
Right.
You will have to ask the same questions. Whereas the people outside, they have to be also educated. You have to kind of hit certain threshold levels before you come in and ask for something. There is this cool thing, okay, I'm doing a startup. When you ask, what are you doing? You don't get any good answers. So sometimes it's better to tell people not to do a startup also. That's very important.
That's very important, yeah. That's true. Can't agree more on that. That is very important to decide, even as a person, as an entrepreneur, if I should really do it or not.
Or as an investor.
As an investor,
Or
absolutely.
as someone joining a startup.
Right.
Or someone like you helping a startup, right?
Correct.
If you don't have all those ingredients, I mean, every experiment will be suboptimal.
Right.
So you look 2 years from now and say, oh, I had 100 companies come, but that doesn't mean anything. You have to produce winners.
Right.
And for that, the entrepreneur himself has to realize he has to be a winner. He can't get help from everything and say, I'm solving the world's problem and not do anything.
Right. Now coming to the next phase, like someone who has started generating revenue, right? And probably to certain matrices, he is falling right, he is making money, and he needs a Series A or that kind of funding, and he is coming to a bigger, like a VC or someone. So what is that from that perspective you look at them?
So it's very simple. Everything, as you start to kind of ask for more and more funding, it has to be relevant to the investor. Now, an institutional investor is always going to look for returns in a particular year. How does that come? It comes from basically growth.
Right,
If you can provide scale
right,
and you are in an area which is basically kind of hot or basically something which is very impactful or it's going to be disruptive, they will come in and invest.
absolutely.
But they have to see that pattern. Can you take the Series A money and get to whatever you call Series B stage? What are all those things and how are you going to execute? I mean, just because you've generated revenue doesn't mean I'm going to give you money. Because if I'm giving you money, I also have to show my return. Now, you can obviously not take money and say, I'm generating revenues, I can run it as a lifestyle business. That's also okay.
Right.
But those two should not be confused.
Absolutely. So moving on to the next question, or the last conclusive session for our this wonderful discussion. We discussed about like your journey, how you have seen India growing. We have understood from you, what was your motivation to leave a high-paying job, get into the startup world, and do something on your own. How you moved back to India and how you have seen India growing leaps and bounds in last couple of decades. And then also we got to understand as an investor what you are looking at it. But some things are, that we all day in, day out, that we face a lot of other different aspects in our entrepreneurship journey. And it is not about just always the investment or, the motivation or the right infrastructure, but also addressing the right market. So when we are talking about the AI kind of products, today many of the entrepreneurs, they come and say probably we want to go outside, we want to go to only big cities, but we have seen that the success of UPI and many such things in India, which happen in tier 2, tier 3 at the grassroots level. So do you think AI is something which should also be focused more, not only, and this I will take as a learning for us also as a center, do you think we should be focusing more and encouraging entrepreneurs to focus more on tier 3 level rather than everybody's focusing more at the tier 1 level, and because they think today really, or many of the people think that that is the market they should address?
Goes back to government policies, right? If you can leverage, there are two kinds of tech. One, you can actually disrupt the existing infrastructure that exists today,
Right.
in healthcare, in education, in agri-tech, right?
Right.
Across India, if you leverage AI well. Everyone knows that. If you work with universities, make sure that things are coming out. Make sure you're solving for Bharat, solving for India. But a lot of things can be done. Transportation, for example, transportation and logistics. Okay? You can actually, even when we talk about mobility, you can actually provide livelihoods for so many people. It can all be done. It will require technology and it will require models, and those things exist today. But the
Right.
dots are not connected.
But for as an entrepreneur, like if I'm doing it now, what should I do that I can impact, I can get a market, or I can get access to that
So
market?
tier 3, I mean, these are all areas: healthcare, education, agri-tech, mobility. All of these provide enough, ample room for technology to actually play a role, right? And you solve for it in your area and see how you can expand, right? So that is one thing I'd advise. You don't have to come here to solve that because the
Right.
problems are there. And technology is available now. It's ubiquitous because you can actually get access online.
Correct.
So the good thing is we have at least a good digital infrastructure. I wouldn't say great, but good,
Right.
okay, today.
Right. Right.
But it's there. So you can actually solve it. You don't have to come here.
Right. So that's a good motivating factor for the entrepreneurs, because people who are particularly building in AI, they have this notion, or had this notion, I will say, that US is the market where if you build something, you have to go there only. And we were struggling to make them understand, many of them, that India also there is a lot of potential.
No, actually, I think if you're building a global product, I would say global product, then I think you're better off going to the US because you'll earn in dollars and you'll spend in rupees. And you're able to kind of become profitable quickly.
Right.
But if you're solving for India, you don't really need to go. So you need to decide which side of the fence you want to be. See, again, blindly, as I said, everyone, I want to be a startup. That's useless. If someone says, I just want to do a startup, I say, go. Go figure out and then come back, right?
Right.
And the same thing is, I am sitting in Indore and I'm doing something in transport. I'll apply this to Arkansas in the US.
It doesn't work that way.
right?
Right, absolutely.
But if you're building, say, a next generation accounting software, you're building basically this. Say, I'll give you three, for
Logistics
examples.
problems or
No, I'll
something.
just give you three examples. I mean, companies which I've mentored, they've done really well. I mean, these are SaaS products.
Right.
Right? Innovator, right? Then Hasura, then Postman, then Whatfix, then MoEngage. And look at other companies like CleverTap and Darwinbox. They're solving for the world. So it makes sense for them to be out there.
Right.
But equivalent products exist here also. In the HR space, it's Greytip. In the accounting space, it's Tally. Tally doesn't need to go there. They built for India, right? So you need to figure out where you want to be and feel comfortable. I want a pair of Levi's jeans, so I want to go to the US and live a cool life. That's different.
But in general, like what we are understanding from you is that market opportunities are there everywhere. It is up to the entrepreneur to decide based on.
Tremendous opportunities are there in India. I'm telling you.
Right. I think we have covered different aspects and of the and during this discussion, and it was wonderful discussing with you. As a summarizing or concluding note, if you can share last few lines that you want to say for us and the startups associated with us which are working on AI, any thoughts from your side, like a parting note or.
So my thing is choose well.
Right.
Get your cohorts properly aligned so that the expectations are set.
Right, absolutely.
And provide them whatever you promise. Okay, because they have expectations too.
Right. And for the startups like who are coming.
Startups don't think too far ahead. Just make sure that you're solving things. You can have a vision.
Right,
no
absolutely.
doubt. But leverage every help that you can get from here in a win-win manner. Don't come in and say this is not provided, that is not provided, because that's not the job of a center like this. The job of the center like this is to make you realize and then give you access to resources, and then you have to build.
Correct.
What happens here is some of the folks who are not able to do well, they'll say, because of this center, I didn't do well. So that means you have to pick and choose the entrance into your program properly. That's where there's a flaw. So I think if you can fix that and then make sure your programs are measured so that proper success is happening and people are happy with the programs, you will do well automatically.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. And I hope that everybody who is going to listen to this podcast, they will enjoy, they will learn a lot. With this, we close today's discussion. Thank you. Thanks, Srikanth. And thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jai Hind.
Thank you for watching this video. Do like, share, and subscribe to our social media channel to know more about AI and ML.